Hello, everybody, and welcome to Smoke. Welcome
Howdy,
to Smoke.
howdy.
All right,
Welcome
everybody.
back.
That's right. We have an awesome show tonight. One I've been waiting on. We have a great guest that's on here, and we're going to talk about stuff that's in the sky, flies around. UFOs and things, and you know that's beginning to be an exciting thing for me. I never really jumped into that whenever I was younger and things. Working on a fishing boat with my grandfather, I seen a lot of things out there where there's no lights. And so, but tonight we have John Carpenter, and he is going to enlighten us on a bunch of things. And I can't wait to get into this conversation. And at first, I want John, I want you to start off and tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and just kind of give everybody a little bit of a rundown on you.
All right. Well, my name is John Carpenter, and I've been in Springfield, Missouri for the last 47 years, and I work as a psychiatric counseling therapist, and that means I've seen everything you can imagine, from little kids with ADHD to autism to psychosis, depression, PTSD, anxiety, personality disorders, and of course, multiple personalities. So you name it, I've had to deal with all that in the last 47 years. Um, but my interests, again, obviously, I like unusual things. So starting in the third grade, my brother brought a book home, and it was about flying saucers. And I thought, oh, that would be fun to read. And I realized they were treating it like real news reports. And I thought, are you kidding? This stuff is real. And third grade, words like pulsate and hover, they were words I didn't know. And so it kind of increased my vocabulary even in third grade. Um, by the time I was in high school, I was collecting reports of things. I remember when Betty and Barney Hill's story came out in Look magazine front cover. I still have it. And Travis Walton's thing in '73. And, I kind of lived through all that, watching things happen and being aware of it. And luckily, I got to meet them all later on. But uh, even my high school, my term paper was on UFO research, and my teacher was so blown away because I had all this fascinating stuff researched in it. She kept my paper as a model for other students to learn from.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, I had cool stuff, and everyone was blown away. So, but I had no idea I was going to be a UFO researcher. What happened is I learned hypnosis in 1980. And about mid 1980s is when Bud Hopkins' book Missing Time, Intruders, and Communion by Whitley Strieber came out. And I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, there's abductions and they're using hypnosis. And I thought, wow, I maybe I could do something with that. And nah, and I waited another year. And then I came back to that thought again, and I thought, maybe I'll just write some of them or see what they say. So I wrote to Bud Hopkins, I wrote to MUFON, and I wrote to the Center for UFO Studies in Illinois, which was Hynek's um, baby. And 2 days later, Walt Andrus, the international director of MUFON, calls me and signs me up in my area as a state section director for 4 counties and a research specialist with my skills. And I said, "Oh, that's cool." And I thought, now what do I do? A nice title, nice idea, but I had no group. I had nothing. So I spent the next year pretty much reading MUFON materials and kind of getting into stuff. And then 2 months later, after that first effort to reach out, Bud Hopkins calls me at home, and I about fell out of my chair because here's this famous author calling me at home, and he was referring me a case in Missouri because he can't do everything that he gets a letter on. So he was glad to know I was in Missouri, and he gave me a case, and we talked for an hour on the phone about hypnosis and abduction techniques and all sorts of stuff, which I took some of his ideas and really expanded on them, and I think it was a very good tool that he gave me a clue, and I think I did a lot more of that particular approach than he ever did. And what I'm talking about is trick questions. You know, if we ask a logical question, people are going to probably say a logical answer.
Right.
But if you've had an abduction experience, you're going to go with what you remember and not the logical answer. For example, if they say that they're no longer on the ground or in their bedroom or whatever, I say, "So you see yourself somewhere else?" And they go, "Yes." I go, "Well, is it indoors or outdoors?" And they go, "It's indoors." I go, "Well, look around the room that you're in and tell me what you see in any of the corners of that room." Well, that's a logical question.
Right.
Not one person ever answered that in the way I tried to influence them. Everyone paused, their eyes went round and round under hypnosis, and they said, I'm sorry, but there don't seem to be any corners in this room. It appears to be a round room." I
Hmm.
knew that it was going to be a round room, but I tried to trick them by asking a logical question.
Right.
And instead, they stuck with what they were experiencing, which is a way of saying when people say, "Oh, hypnosis, you're just suggesting these answers to them, you're leading them, you're suggesting all the things that you know about, and that's why they come up with these answers." No, I'm doing just the opposite. I'm suggesting logical answers which do not fit with the actual abduction data. And that means if they're really having an experience, they're going to deny my question and tell me what they really see. And I have one more example of that. I'll ask them, I say, when the alien opens his mouth, do you hear a high pitched, low pitched, or medium pitched voice? That's a double trick. Because, first of all, no one ever sees the mouth open.
Right.
Hmm.
And then they never say they hear a voice. They say, "Well, I don't really hear a voice. It's like I'm hearing their thoughts in my head." And they never use the word telepathy, but they describe telepathy in their own way. It's like they're thinking inside my head. It's like I'm hearing their thoughts. It's really weird. I don't really hear a voice. So again, I asked a very logical question twice. Mouth open, what tone of voice? And nobody ever fell for that because they were sticking to what they experienced and how they experienced it. So sometimes I do that all session long and they get frustrated. And they, "No, no, it's not like that. It's like this." And I did that because the critics would all say, "Well, hypnosis is so suggestible and you're leading them on." Well, I tried to lead them on in logical directions and it never worked. So that's what Bud Hopkins gave me a clue on, that he did some of that. And I really got into that and did it a lot because it was just proof I was not affecting them. I was not causing them to come up with those answers.
Hmm.
Wow. So, so tell me a little bit about this. Now, this is something I found really interesting when I was reading that all of these abductees and things like that had a difference in, or had a thing of missing time.
Hmm.
So, how do you, under hypnosis or whatever, how do you find the time that they missed? Can you find that?
Yes. Um, and usually I can, but you have to go about it in a different way. If you just say, "What do you remember?" Well, we remember things in lots of ways: smells, sounds, pictures, sensations, tactile things. So when they don't remember, for example, if two women are in a car and they pull over because they see a light hovering over a field, and then the next thing it's 2 hours later and they're driving away, and one's got a nosebleed and the other is grumpy and doesn't want to talk, but they don't know where the 2 hours went. So I take them back to when they pulled over. I did each of them separately in independent sessions, and I asked, like, "Well, keep looking at the light and notice what happens next." I don't suggest what happens. I just have them take a good look at it. If they say, "Well, it just seems to be hovering there," and I say, "Well, notice where you are. Are you still sitting in the car?" "No, I'm standing next to the car." "Oh, so you must have gotten out. Well, what do you hear?" And then they go, "Oh, I remember now. I heard this buzzing, humming sound." And I said, "And what happens next?" And they go, "I remember smelling this really interesting smell." And I said, "And when you smelled that, what were you doing?" He said, "I was starting to walk around the front of the car." So see, it's like you trigger little bits of sensory information: smells, sounds, sights, textures, position, where they are, what temperature it is. I mean, just anything you can think of that might trigger the next memory. And then sometimes it just all starts to open up, just like boom, now they're starting to remember everything. It just all comes back to them like sometimes you have a dream and you don't remember it, but then the next day you run into somebody who was in your dream, and then suddenly the whole dream comes back to you.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
kind of the same thing. You trigger it, and then suddenly it all starts to come back to them, and they start remembering what happened. And I know it sounds strange when they don't remember for 2 hours, but aliens often tell them that you will not remember this, or you'll remember it as something else, or you're going to forget this. So I'm kind of undoing that and saying you can remember, and let's take it one little baby step at a time and see what you can come up with. And it's amazing how well that works, though, because I never give up. I always try a different approach. If they don't see anything more, then I go, "Well, what do you hear?" And then they go, "That's really strange. It's like everything is silent." And I say, "Look around and see what is silent." And so I'll just keep kind of trying to find a way into their memories, and it never fails. Like something will trigger, and then they'll just start flowing with all sorts of things they start to remember again.
So, well, with this time lapse, I mean, is there physical attributes that they show? I mean, is there physical marks or
Oh yeah.
features and things like that that they have?
Oh yeah. In fact, in this case of the two ladies that pulled over, when they had their sessions, and again, independently, I worked with them, uh, so they didn't know what each one had come up with, but they had incredibly matching sessions. They both remember being pulled up in a blue beam of light. They both remember going into this room. One lady was laid on a table and had an exam done and something put up her nose, which explains the nosebleed she was having later. The other one was standing nearby, kind of upset and screaming, because she's afraid what they're going to do to her friend. Well, one lady remembers being on the table, seeing her friend screaming. The other one remembers screaming and seeing the lady on the table. And then they describe the features of the room, certain columns, certain features, the way the table looked, the round room, the kind of lighting that there was. I mean, this went into uh, the Center for UFO Studies Journal of Science because I had 43 specific matching details between their two independent hypnosis sessions. Um, and so, yeah, often they come back with a little scoop mark, and I think that's a removal of like DNA tissue, or something put up their nose, inserted like a little tracking device implant, or it might be under their skin. Sometimes they have needle marks. Interesting, they often have triangular bruises, and I have a few photos of those. Bruises don't happen in triangles.
No,
No.
not normally.
But
No.
I brought that up, and then a couple of new cases says, "Yeah, we have triangular bruises too," and showed me pictures. I go, "There we go." so, um, so yes, there's often marks and different things like that, and they'll remember procedures. They don't understand them, but they'll remember that they're doing something. And it's interesting because a lot of times you think, well, they'd be terrified, they'd want to scream and run out of the room, but when the aliens look them in the eyes, it's like a hypnotic thing. And in fact, it happens so quickly, I almost fall out of my chair because they go from squirming on the table, squirming, on the couch that I have them on, to suddenly just super relaxed, like someone hit them with Valium. And I said, "What happened?" They go, "He looked in my eyes, and now I just feel so relaxed. It's like, and that happened like every single time. Because I'll say, if you're scared, why don't you get up off that table and run? Again, a logical question.
Right.
And they go, no, I'm just so relaxed. I don't care. And they say it's going to be fine. I'll be going home soon. So,
So, how many of those
Crazy.
that never come home?
oh, how would I talk to them if they hadn't come home?
I mean, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, how many cases that's out there that people went missing
There's
and
only one that I know of. It was a pilot in flying near Australia many years ago. I think it was the early 70s, maybe. Um, and his plane came down, but they never found him. And the last thing he said was, "The lights hitting the cockpit. I feel like something's happening." And then he was gone, and the plane came down, but he never returned. And that is extremely rare.
right,
Extremely rare. Um, they always come back. Well, at least the ones we talk to. I mean, if they didn't come back, we're not going to talk to them. But I'm not aware of any other cases where people saw abductions and never saw the people again.
Hmm. You talk about MUFON. Could you explain what MUFON is?
Yeah, it's called the Mutual UFO Network. And what that means is it's all over the world. Every country has a director. Um, and in each country, they divide it up into sections. So, of course, in the United States, every state has a director. And then in each state, they divide it up into counties. So, like I had 4 counties, someone else might have a big county or maybe 6 little ones or whatever, but they would have it divided up, and then there would be a person responsible for reports in each of those areas. And then I would have like researchers underneath me where there'd be like a cattle mutilation or a sighting or something, and I'd have them go check it out, and they'd come back and file their report. But the best thing MUFON had was they had, gosh, it was like 40 to 50 fields of science represented by specialists. So whether it's geology or soil sampling or photography or video analysis or we had something for every area of science. So if we had some sample or something that needed to be investigated, we had specialists. And I had videos and photos that were sent off to top specialists in the country and were judged to be authentic. No fakery, no phoniness, no. Of course, when I was doing it back and starting in '89 and going up through about the year 2000, well, we didn't have digital stuff or Photoshop or any of that stuff yet. So
right.
it was a lot easier back then than now. You could create great AI could create
Yeah.
a great UFO photo, and you'd never know it was a fake because it would do it so perfectly. But we had that's the thing, and this is worldwide. So when there were conferences, there'd be representatives from like Puerto Rico or Korea or England or Germany or I went to a MUFON conference in Australia, in Brazil, and Scotland, and so there the whole world was involved in this network. And because I was a therapist and had kind of a scientific take on it all, I mean, everyone has opinions about what they think's going on, but I always dealt with what are they telling me? What are the facts? Uh, because to be honest, everybody has a different take on it. I could have the exact same thing happen in a session between two people, but one person would say they were spiritually evolved, they felt lucky they were picked it, and someone else would say they were traumatized and having nightmares and it was the most horrible thing in their life. And yet, when I look at their sessions, the exact same things happened to them. It's just their view of it. I always say if you go to a movie theater and everybody sees the same movie, they're all going to come out with the same exact reaction. No.
Right.
No, not
Some
at
will
all.
say it was boring. I slept through it. Someone else will say it was the best movie I'd ever seen, and someone else will say it was stupid. I hated it. Well, they all saw the same thing. They all went through it at the same time and had the same experience. Why didn't they all have the same opinion? So the psychology of abduction research has to take into account that just because someone says they're evil and they can't be trusted doesn't mean that that's really the truth. That's their feeling, their take on it. Um, Interesting from my research, it seemed more like a kid being treated in a doctor's office. Uh, it's like an alien will say, "Hold still, you're okay. You'll be going home soon. You'll be all right. You won't remember this. Okay, we're done." It was
Yeah.
more like a nurse talking to a little kid. And I got that more than anything else. And if they asked questions, sometimes they'd answer and sometimes they wouldn't. But sometimes they might give some kind of answer to someone who asked a question, but sometimes they just ignored them and kept doing their procedures and their inspections and exams and whatever they're up to.
Hmm.
Now, some of of course, you had a lot of contribution on papers, doing papers and establishing some of the guidelines for MUFON um, back in the '90s and things like that. And so, how evidently those writings and the research that you've done helped shape MUFON for today. And
Hmm.
so how many abductions that have you actually researched?
I did about 140.
Hmm.
Wow, there's a
That's a
lot of
lot.
people leaving.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, a
but
lot of people.
but some of those had multiple participants, which was really my favorite thing to do. If I had two or three people, then I would make sure that I got to them independently and interviewed them and did the sessions independently, and uh, and then it never failed that their accounts would match up. I never had two people where their accounts did not match up, so it made it very real for me. And even other psychologists would tell me, "Yeah, if you got two people coming up with the same thing under hypnosis independently, that's pretty significant."
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, have you seen cases where whole families were affected by this type of thing?
Yes, and in fact, maybe not all at once, but over generations. I had several cases that went 4 generations, um, and it's we looked all of us, Bud Hopkins, me, John Mack, David Jacobs. We all looked very closely at what how is someone selected? Is it their blood type? Is it their ancestry? Is it something about them physically? I mean, how do they pick somebody? And I always laugh because David Jacobs said, "I know, there's one, get him." and the truth about all that is we never could find any particular correlation among abductees. But what we did find is once somebody was selected, that family line was tracked over many generations. And in science, you would call that a longitudinal study where you would follow a particular DNA or family line, genetic line over a number of generations. And it never failed. That would come up a lot, almost guaranteed that if mother had it and we checked with her mom, she might admit, yeah, I had something happen, but I don't want to talk about it. Or the kid would start having dreams about something coming, like a cute little teddy bear coming in his window at night and talking to him. And then we'd find out that there was a lot more going on with that. But
Hmm.
it's interesting that it would always seem to follow generations in the same family line.
Wow, I had I don't know. It's been a couple 3 weeks ago. I was on a podcast with a young lady, and we were discussing RH negative and positive blood types.
Hmm.
And we had actually gotten into, of course, I think it's kind of a myth, if you will, that maybe um, alien abductions or aliens themselves had something to do with the RH or was attracted to the Rh negative and positive blood types. So why would I mean? What do you think about that? Would they? Would that be a factor to abduct somebody?
No, I mean, they might think so, and it might be coincidence, but we studied a lot of cases, perhaps hundreds, and compared, and we never found something like that that was like consistent. Otherwise, we would all be talking about it.
Oh, sure.
But we deliberately looked at stuff like that to see, is it only blue-eyed people? Is it a certain blood type? Is it a certain height or ancestry or German or whatever? What is it that, why is this particular person abducted? And we never could find any particular trait or characteristic that was common among all or even most of them.
So things are just random. I mean,
Random until it's random at first, and then they follow that family line for generations.
Hmm.
uh, they found something they liked, I guess. Um,
Well, again, if you're a scientist, you're going to stick with the same genetics and follow it over a period of time.
that's true. That's true.
It's good
What
science.
part of
Yeah, they're good little scientists.
Oh yeah.
what part of the world do you think has the most sightings for UFOs?
Where the most people are willing to report.
Okay.
It's
And
always a reporting phenomenon. Here in Springfield, when I started, I didn't know of any case in the area. And then after I got to be known and I was collecting reports, we got hundreds. I didn't know anything was going on here. I had a lady who had had an abduction in Springfield 40 years before, another one 15 years before, but they didn't know who to tell. Now that they knew who to tell, all of a sudden I'm getting all these cases from many years that weren't discovered because they didn't know who to tell.
right.
So you might say, well, Missouri's got nothing. Well, then when you got researchers, oh, Missouri's got a lot of cases. Well, I think every place has got a lot of cases, but they got to have someone to tell it to.
Right. Gotcha.
I wish Alabama had some places to tell it to because I have, of course, I mentioned we're paranormal investigators. That
Right?
paranormal group is our group, and we've been doing this quite a while. And um, I've had people contact me, hey, can you guys come and investigate this light that I see and stuff like that? And um, okay, where's the light at? And then they tell me it's in the sky, um, or their aunt was abducted and things like that. Of course, I don't have the richness to do that. I would have to seek out someone like you, or someone that is
Hmm.
in that field.
Right.
And, but I don't know of very many here in Alabama. Only a few. And
Well, the one thing that anyone can do is call the 1-800 number for MUFON, which I'm sure you can find, Google it, you know, and then they can direct you to who in your area, because there's always somebody covering your area, but you just don't know who it is. And
right,
so MUFON can always tell you, hey, get hold of this person. He's got investigators, or he can take your report.
good deal, good deal. That's good to know. And I never really, because I'm not into that very much. I never really thought about that. But
Yeah, they cover the entire planet. And back to your question about what country or whatever, every country has had tons of reports. Again, it depends on who's willing to share it. Chile's really good about sharing. Brazil's really good about sharing. England and Belgium are really good about sharing. Belgium had those triangular discs that the pilots had filmed and encountered, and they weren't afraid. The government put that right out there. And of course, the United States was a little oh oh, maybe that's going on.
Hush, hush.
Yeah. And
yeah,
when Russia fell apart, the Soviet Union fell apart, people like George Knapp went over there and got all sorts of stuff that they were selling off because they needed the money. um, he came back with some interesting evidence, items, things that have been recovered from crafts, and of course they started sharing a lot of reports, and a lot of things came out of Russia when they were willing to share. So again, it's a reporting phenomenon. It happens everywhere, all over the globe. I can't think of any place that says, well, they've never had one.
right. Um, in our chat room, of course, you're familiar with Mercedes. She's
Oh
in,
yes.
yeah, and she says hello, by the way.
Hi, Mercedes.
And of course, Arizona, from what I understand, it has a lot of sightings and stuff. And now my wife told me of a story here in Dothan, um, that they didn't know if it was a UFO or whatever, but she was a kid, and that the skies just became completely dark, and they thought maybe it was bad weather that was coming in. And then all of a sudden they started seeing these things. Um, they were calling them crafts at that time, and then of course we're right here at Fort Rucker, and then the news started telling them, oh, that's weather balloons. Well, how many times would you have weather balloons that
At
are
night.
segmented, yeah, in different places, and they're just there? I mean, and you see all the different lights and stuff like that. So, of course, my wife could tell it a whole lot better, but I always thought that was kind of strange. And now, when I read a report or watch a show or something, and they're talking about, well, it was notably weather balloons. Okay, I
No.
definitely don't believe that it was weather balloons.
Well,
Okay,
they get away with that because you can't prove that it wasn't.
well, that's true.
Well, what I've
So
seen wasn't no weather balloon because weather balloons don't just pew, take off through the sky
right.
while it's
Nor do
sitting
they glow
still.
with this brilliant light. No, and they don't shoot beams of light down either. So
Well, that's
weather
true.
balloon thing is just a farce.
Right. Um, maybe it's because they either don't understand what's going on, and this is just a way of keeping the public from outraging or whatever, and or they're just trying to hide something. And of course, they've always hidden things like this for years and years and years, and now, of course, the government is releasing all these UFO files and things like that. So, what do you think about them releasing these files? Is that anything new, or I mean,
uh, they kind of are forced to because they admitted that they had these particular films from Navy pilots and stuff, and that we've all seen on TV 100 times. Um, but once they did that, then they kind of had to admit that, yeah, they were studying it and they weren't sure what was going on. But then they said they're going to release some files. Well, they've got probably millions of files, and they're not going to release the good stuff. Trust
oh,
me.
okay,
In fact, I got to know Leonard Stringfield, he was a pilot, Air Force pilot, and he saw those what they called Foo Fighters in World War II, uh,
hmm,
which were like luminous globes that were darting among the planes, and that got him interested. And the Air Force actually had him start collecting UFO reports. Well, he did that, and then when he got out of the Air Force, he wanted to keep collecting UFO reports, but of course, the military says we don't know what he's talking about. and but because he was a trusted person who did a good job of it, he got 650 independent military reports from people who had to tell someone what they had seen or experienced.
oh my,
And oh yeah, he's such a good researcher. I got to know him real well between 90 and 93, 1990 to 93. He died in 94, so I was very fortunate to have that time with him. And I actually have a 1 hour video interview with him. And he's written up a lot of stuff for MUFON, and he published a lot of things. But in short, these 650 military witnesses, for example, one might have been called to repair an air conditioner in an underground base. Well, when he's down there, he looks over in the next room and there's these aliens laying on tables. Uh, okay, that's interesting. But then when you have another guy that comes down to repair something else in that area, he too reports seeing the exact same thing and independently tells it to Leonard Stringfield. And he does that because Leonard's not going to reveal their identities or tell anyone that they've reported this. He's just going to collect the information and add it up. So many times he had very unusual scenes or incidents that were corroborated by perhaps numerous independent witnesses that would come forth to him. So he told me that all in all, there were about 30 crashes that were retrieved and about 30 bodies that were kept. And to some people, they go, "What?" Well,
Yeah, right.
I trust his work because again, they came from independent military personnel who were had to tell someone and knew they could trust him.
Yeah.
So he collected a lot of those things, and he had autopsy reports, and he told me that even when the aliens are dead, their eyes are so compelling that you just feel like they're still staring a hole through you, even when they're dead, laying on a table. So
Mm.
he had a lot of interesting details, and he never wanted fame or have a big name. He just was a serious researcher collecting reports, and people trusted him. And the military just left him alone because he wasn't revealing names, but he was collecting information.
Right. Wow. Well, that kind of brings you back to Area 51, where people seeing all of the well, there was aliens there and things like that, and of course, a lot of the government reports, no, there never was any aliens there, and that was a farce, and so on and so forth. So
Yeah, they just keep weather balloons there.
that's right, weather balloons.
Yeah.
That that would be crazy. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I stood outside the gate of Area 51 with George Knapp and Robert Bigelow.
oh yeah,
Yeah. And George was saying, yeah, you don't want to step inside there. They have motion detectors and they'll have troops here within minutes to wonder what you're doing here.
sure.
But the actual base was probably about 20 miles away because they have 86,000 acres. Again, 86,000 acres.
Mm.
So,
Wow.
That's a
yeah,
lot of
so you're
land.
you're not going to be close until you trek in there about 20 miles.
Oh my. Well, I mean, I'm sure that would be an interesting place to explore.
Oh, yeah, if you live through
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so, all right.
But if they're not hiding anything, why would they have all that security?
That's
Exactly.
right.
Exactly. Mm.
Barrels of waste. I had read somewhere where they had like barrels of nuclear waste and things like that. That's one of the main reasons they didn't let any civilian type people in and stuff like that.
No, they bust them in to work on things and then bust them out of there with darkened windows. That's what
That's
Bob Lazar was had talked about, and other people confirmed what he was talking about. So he was the one that broke that whole story with George Knapp back in about 1989.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Mercedes actually, let me put it up where I can see it. She says, I think it's amazing that he is standing out there with George Knapp and Mr. Bigelow. I mean, why was he saying what he was doing? That's pretty amazing just for that. So, um,
Well, George Knapp had actually had me come out to Nevada to do an abduction case. And Robert Bigelow always likes to tag along because he loved all this and he sometimes would fund projects and stuff because he wanted research to happen and he would do anything to assist. And so he tagged along just out of fun and curiosity. And so after we got done working with this abduction hypnosis case that they both sat in on, uh, we were close enough that George wanted us to just stop by the outside road, in front of Area 51, just so we could say we were there.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would uh, I would be interested in things like that. But
Make
so
a good
Oh, yeah.
picture.
yeah, so all this, if you guys could get these reports that the government has leaked out over the years, and I'm pretty sure you guys have had access to some of that stuff, as being MUFON. Um, so how have you guys actually had some of that information, and if so, how has that kind of shaped how MUFON is today?
Well, I think like the work Leonard Stringfield did was proof that the military did have things going on, and they had bodies and they had crashes, and their retrieval team was called the Blue Berets. That was their recovery team that would go to crash sites and do the recovery of items. And they could describe pretty much the whole procedure, what they did, how they collected it, how they transported it. I mean, they had so many different witnesses that would describe how things worked. So we knew from different researchers that were getting reports um, what we could probably believe was going on. And actually, we often get a lot more reports than the government probably did. I mean, they would have some of the more secret stuff, but we were the ones collecting stuff from all over the world. So, and I think it became overwhelming. You notice it hasn't ever gone away.
Right, right,
It just seems to be like an epidemic that just can't ever stop or slow down. And it's again, it's a reporting phenomenon. You have more people willing to talk about it. You have more people seeing things. You have more cell phone videos. You have more cameras out there now. You have more people looking for stuff. And when that happens, you're going to get more reports and more videos and more stuff. And the government just can't, they can't just come out and say, okay, we knew about it, because then they'd be under fire for like, what all do you know? And then they wouldn't want to say.
right.
I always said, I don't think someone like George Bush would come out and say, my fellow Americans, I just want you to know that aliens are visiting our planet. They are abducting our people, and we can't stop them. But we just thought you needed to know that. Have a good night.
Well, I definitely agree with you. Yeah.
So
Um,
he's not going to say that.
no, 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 no.
Well, we've got Area 51 here in the United States. Is there a place like that in other countries also?
Um, I would say so. I think Australia has a site, and I think the U.S. might even own that site, but I think they have one there. Um, I think Chile's probably got one, and some of the others. But again, it's just who knows and who tells about it. But if you got any kind of materials or crash stuff, somebody's got it under lock and key somewhere.
Right.
Uh, uh, that I
Well, I should tell you this. One of the things that leaked out of Russia is that they used to send up fighter planes to intercept UFOs. Well, UFOs had an interesting way of dealing with that. They would simply turn off the electrical system in the planes remotely, and the planes would fall like a rock out of the sky. So
Hmm.
after that, Russia's plan was don't chase them.
leave him alone.
Yeah,
Right.
they could
So
just turn off your whole power and you just drop like a rock, and they didn't have to shoot you down. They just shut down your system and off you go.
right. You know, now I'm from the coast of North Carolina, uh, and I have been in the Atlantic and in the Bermuda Triangle a lot. Whenever in Granddad's boats, he had fishing boats and things. And you know, being out in international waters, there is no lights. People that's not ever been out there just doesn't know how dark it gets. And
Hmm.
you can see billions and hundreds of billions, it seems like, of lights and things. And when you're when you're laying on the bow of a boat, 2 o'clock in the morning or something, and then you see all these different lights that just they're not just flying along like this. They're just zipping from here to there, and and things like. And I'm
Weather balloons.
yeah. I tell you what, those weather
Right.
balloons are moving fast now.
Yeah, they got
Uh,
some cool ones.
yeah,
Awful windy.
Yeah.
but I mean that happened to me. I mean I'm laying on this boat. I'm out there smoking a cigarette, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you can almost hear those things as streaking through the sky and stuff. And there's hundreds of them.
So what did you think they were? Mm.
I had no idea. Of course, my uncle he gets up and comes out, and I'm like, "What is that?" And of course he's a big UFO guy, and he says, "Those are aliens." and needs to stay up there, and that type of thing. And of course, we laughed about it, but they were there,
Yeah.
and something I couldn't explain or anything like that.
So
Uh,
did you file a report?
no, no, I
Okay.
didn't.
See, and that's what I'm talking about. People see stuff all the time, but they say about 1 in 20 will try to file a report.
Right,
So
and I guess maybe back then I would think, okay, somebody's gonna think I'm a nut,
sure,
that type of
sure.
thing. But
They still think that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but now if I seen something, yeah, I'm calling somebody,
There you go.
because I'm in the paranormal field, been there a good while. Things have changed the way I look at things, and it doesn't really matter if somebody thinks I'm a nut because I probably am in some regards. But you know, I know what I see, and so yeah, I would definitely call somebody. And now that I know you, I would probably contact you.
Well, we are all pioneers on a new frontier, and there's nothing crazy about that. We're doing the work that needs to be done to understand parts of life that we don't know about, the
Right.
paranormal, the aliens, the near death experiences, the spiritual realm. I mean, there's so many things to explore that someone might think you're crazy. In fact, I was telling Mercedes on her show that I get all the stories because since people think they're crazy, they come to me and I reassure them that that's paranormal. That's not crazy. A lot of people are experiencing what they're going through and they're so happy and so relieved and they tell other people, "Go see that therapist. He understands paranormal. He'll listen to you, and he won't think you're crazy."
Right. Mercedes says she never filed a report when she saw things. So I guess we're all guilty of that. And
Well, me too. I saw one, and I didn't report it. I didn't know at the time who to report it to, but it was an oval light that dropped down out of the sky, kind of floated along for a second, and then zipped back up. It was probably not more than 2 seconds long, but I knew it wasn't an airplane, it wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't a meteor, and I went through all that, and I thought, I just saw an unidentified flying object.
That's the same thing I saw,
Yep.
except for it stayed there, I'd say about a minute or so. And like I said, we got helicopters where we live. It wasn't a helicopter because it was a big light. It stayed there and then boom, it was gone. Just that
Yep.
fast. I mean, you could
Yep.
see it streak off.
And did you
now,
report yours?
Nope.
Yeah, see, all of us didn't report, and yet we
No.
all saw things.
We know
it,
now. If you don't report it, it can't be investigated.
That's
that's
right.
right.
And that's why I'm saying it's a reporting phenomenon. You know, the country has the most cases is the one that has the most people reporting.
That's true. Uh, and a Mercedes, she says that she agreed with me, and now whenever she sees something, she's gonna report it.
All
So
right.
that's a good thing. And
Yep.
but
Yeah, don't call
so
the police though. Don't call the police.
no,
Call
They'll think
MUFON.
you're crazy.
Well,
that's
they'll
right.
just say, "Oh, we got another kook."
Yeah. What you smoking there, buddy? Yeah.
Can I see your
Bring the
ID?
dog out here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I see your ID? Exactly.
Yeah. Are you an immigrant?
With
uh,
Mercedes, she says, I really like the wordage pioneers on the new frontier. That's actually really cool.
oh,
Absolutely.
she is one of them. So, Mercedes, you are one of those
Absolutely.
pioneers.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
So, all right. Here in a minute, I'm going to get you to talk about your books and stuff like that. But there is one question I want to ask you. And I asked somebody this, I don't know, I was on a podcast a few years ago. And I was thinking about this. And they said, if there was one thing that you could ask an alien, what would that be? What would that question be, and why?
What are you up to? Basically, what is their overall game plan for visiting our planet? And of course, different races would probably have different agendas, but whoever I'm talking to, I just want to ask them, like, And I would just do it nicely, like, okay, you guys are doing something here. What's the game plan? What are you up to? What's your in goal, or that kind of thing.
Are we going to live through it? You know,
Nah.
that type of thing.
I
You know,
don't
are
want to
you
know.
just
I don't want to know.
are you sizing us up? You know, and that's why the abductions. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I said, what are you studying? What are you learning? And we have learned some things, like Bud Hopkins will often talk about how they're studying our emotions and how we react to things
yeah,
because they've like over evolved and they don't have many emotions. They're more like AI now. So
right. Well, the intelligence factor is so much. I mean, we may be as intelligent, we just don't have that mental state that they do. Okay, we're created all by the
I
same
always
God. And
I always joked about if we sat in front of a computer for the next 1,000 years, we probably our bodies would atrophy and get skinny. We'd lose our sexual organs because we'd be doing everything in a lab, and our heads would get big and our eyes would get big because we're just staring at a screen all the time.
so we look like aliens.
There you go.
Got the big eyes.
Yeah,
Maybe that's what happened.
our skin would turn gray because they have no nutrients because we wouldn't eat.
There you
Okay,
go.
I get it. I get it. You know,
Don't need to open our mouths because we're just staring at a screen all the time.
yeah, yeah. So when my wife does that, because she she does that probably 18 hours a day, honestly. So I'm gonna tell her now. Okay, wait a minute. You got to ease up. You're gonna turn into an alien.
Yep.
Remember, John said that that's what's gonna happen. So you need to not do that.
We'll have to start calling her Alf.
Out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she won't talk to me now.
Nah, she will. She will. But all right. So I know you wrote some good books and things like that. Let's go into that a little bit and tell everybody what you wrote. And
All
maybe.
right. Well, actually, it's interesting. I'm just now writing a book about my best stuff from UFO research. I started 2 years ago, but then I realized I had way too much and it was just going to be overwhelming. And then some of my cases were afraid of their personal information somehow affecting them if it was published. And of course, I wasn't going to use their names or anything, but so I held off on that. And then I got into other research like near death experiences and life after death stuff. And I wrote a book called The Intense Reality of Eternity. And what I did is I collected reports from all over the world, hundreds and hundreds. Then I went through and I picked the best details out of each one and I just kind of put them into files and stuff, and like the gates of heaven, or leaving your body, or seeing dead family members, or whatever. And after collecting all this, after a year and 54 resources, which was thousands of cases, including atheists and little kids and different religions, I was blown away because everyone was saying the same things. And so that book is a whole series of quotes lined up so you get 15 descriptions of this and 10 descriptions of that. And all from the moment you start to leave your body to as far into heaven or hell or wherever that you could possibly go, according to reports. So that literally takes people to another realm. And I call it the intense reality of eternity because it could be intense joy and blissful happiness, or it could be nightmarish hell. And it explains a lot from these reports about what people see, what they experience, and how it matches up. And it's not because you did one bad thing you go to hell. No, people got the wrong idea of that. But the book goes into all that stuff that was discovered. And I didn't put my opinion in the book at all. I didn't have to. I let the facts, the details, all that just paint the picture of what people are reporting. So that was one book I wrote. Another book I wrote was called Be Not Afraid to Follow the Footprints from Heaven,
Right.
which is a way of saying, um, hey, there might be some evidence that God is real. And so I have a lot of religious miracles in there and the science of them and what they've discovered. And it's just a whole array of different things. That was the only book I was going to write, so I put a lot into it. But then I needed to expand on the life after death stuff, and then the science of Jesus. That was my second book. He is alive. Science finds Jesus, and it goes into all sorts of things like the Shroud of Turin and the Veil of Veronica and bleeding statues, weeping statues, stigmata, all these different things that people have heard about, but the science of them, and the scientists, what they find was just totally amazing. Just real quick, when like a communion host or wafer starts bleeding, or the wine turns into blood, and they're going, how could this be? Well, they gave it to scientists and just said, what is this? They didn't tell them where they got it or what happened. They just did a blind study and just say, what is this? And with the wafer, they say, well, this is flesh from the human heart, and it looks like it's been tortured and beat, and there's white blood cells in there trying to heal. And I'm thinking, all from a communion wafer? Yes, but the scientists were finding what they saw, not what they believed. And a lot of them were atheists anyway.
Right.
So the book's full of stuff like that. It's just fascinating. Um, then my fourth book, so I had the one on eternity, the one on Jesus and science, and the one about religious miracles. And then the fourth book was a fun one where this professor is trying to teach a class of unruly, know it all, obnoxious kids who think they understand all these supernatural things. And a lot of them don't believe, some of them are confused, some of them have it all wrong. And so in each chapter on each topic, the professor slowly feeds them research and some of the things I've already talked about. Um, and the students keep coming, well, yeah, but what about this? Well, hey, what about this? I heard this, So actually, I capture all the kinds of things you'd hear on the internet or from actual kids, and then they have those questions answered in the book in each chapter. So that was a lot of fun to write, and it's a good one for kids to read. And then my last book was a novel, which was about a crusty old police detective who didn't believe in anything supernatural, but he got sidelined with an injury and he hated his desk job. So his best friend in Italy tells him to come join the new Miraculous Claims Investigation Unit at the Vatican that's going to go around the world and investigate religious miracles. And he goes, well, I don't believe in that crap. And they go, that's exactly why we want you, because you're a good detective and you're going to not automatically believe stuff. So the rest of the book is his journey, and it's called The Unexpected Journey. It's his journey into exploring all those things. And the neat thing about the book is I use real cases, real miracles, real investigations for him to stumble into and him trying to explain everything. And he finds eventually he just can't and he's overwhelmed. There's some real twists and turns in the book that just really, people said, just really makes the book. And it's a fun read that you end up at the end. You can't help but believing what he's now believing because you just
Absolutely.
went through it with him.
So
So that
That's
was a
where
lot of
interesting.
fun.
where can I buy these books?
They're all on Amazon, and you have to be careful because you have to put in John S. Carpenter, otherwise you're going to get the movie director and everything about him.
Yeah.
Um, and you can always write to me. I always have some, and you get them a little cheaper from me anyway. Um,
Okay.
but and I don't mind giving out my email if you allow that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tell people where they can get a hold of you and stuff
Right.
like that.
My email is carpenter, Carpenter, 2655 at AOL.com. So that's carpenter2655 at AOL.com. But like I said, you can find these on the internet and on Amazon. In fact, Barnes and Noble, all my publisher puts it on all the book platforms. You can even walk into a bookstore and they'll be able to find it on their computer in the international listing of books. So
Hmm,
um,
that's
anyway,
cool.
but I think I sent you all the titles and stuff, so you
You
can.
did, and I tried to pull some of them up, but for whatever, StreamYard's not been working with me for the last few. days, so I couldn't I couldn't get it to come up. So, but I will share that. And tell me again one more time what your email is.
Carpenter 2655 at AOL.com.
Because I'm gonna put it here in the chat so people can. Carpenter2655 at AOL.com. Okay,
Yeah, and tell them not to look like junk mail.
there we go. Yeah, don't look like junk mail, y'all. But so I can reach out to you and get one of those books, and it'll be a signed copy, right?
Oh, of course.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. So, Michael, you got anything that you want to ask John, or?
No, I pretty much asked. He answered pretty much what I was wanting to know.
Yeah, he's given us a lot of information, and John, we this is amazing for us because this is something that, as a paranormal team, I've talked to my team. I'm technically the lead guy of the team, but we try to do everything as a team, and
Good.
uh, and so we've talked about UFOs and things like that, but we've never really gone down that avenue of trying to investigate it or research it or anything like that. Maybe now, um, talking with you and doing some research on you, that maybe it is an avenue that we later may want to go down. And of course, I've been on other podcasts and things. Years ago, I produced a podcast for another network, and they had a time traveler that was a guest on there, and I forget his name now. But his thing, he said that interdimensional travel was how these aliens and things like that got around, and so on and so forth. How they, went from place to place. But he also included that Bigfoot was actually an alien with a Bigfoot suit on, and that's how he would the alien would go amongst things and things like that. I was like, wait a minute, okay. Um,
Well, I can throw maybe an opinion in there. I think Bigfoot is Bigfoot, but he has been seen disappearing in flashes of light, going through dimensional windows, and even being dropped off or picked up by UFOs. So
oh,
he
that's
might be
cool.
an alien, and that's probably why he's hard to find because people have seen him and then suddenly he just disappears into thin air. He goes through a dimensional window, and I know George Knapp actually, when he was at uh, Skinwalker Ranch, that area, they did some tests and they actually saw a Bigfoot pull himself up out of a dimensional window and into the terrain. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's in the book. It's actually in the book that Com Keller and George Knapp wrote on Hunt for the Skinwalker. I think that was the name of it.
Well, we're gonna have to have you back so we can do a show on that. I mean,
Oh, I've learned a lot apparently.
yeah, absolutely, and well,
I
I've
told
learned a
Mercedes
lot
I
from you.
didn't. I told Mercedes I didn't know how much I knew until you start asking.
So
Yeah.
we definitely, after our event, I'm gonna get you to come back, and because skinwalkers, I like talking about that stuff. Um,
Okay. Mm.
and of course, now I like talking about the UFO stuff. That's become, I'm really intrigued by it now.
Well,
Just new.
good. Mm.
So that may be a new avenue for us, Michael.
Yeah,
And
we
All
might have to
right.
do an investigation one night.
yeah,
There you go.
maybe one of these calls. Hey, we'll call MUFON and get it reported, and maybe get some investigators out, and maybe John will come out and investigate with us and do
Uh,
so. And
well, just remember, all four of us, including Mercedes, saw something and none of us reported it. So
well, that's
think how
true.
many millions of people have probably also not done that and seen
So,
things. Mm.
absolutely. So that's cool.
Well,
But
guys, it's been a pleasure to be with you, and I'll
well,
come back
John,
Yeah,
anytime.
thank you
good to
very much
have
for
you.
coming on. And like I said, I'm gonna get you set up, come back on the show, and I'll probably reach out to you next week, and we'll
Okay,
get that date set up. And again, thank you for coming on and giving us so much information.
no problem.
And
Yeah, I learned a lot.
oh,
Thank you.
absolutely. Well, brother, you have a great night.
All
Michael, you
right.
have a great one. And it looks like it's getting ready to storm here, so I'm gonna jump off of here. And but y'all both have a safe night, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
All right.
You
Thank you.
too. See
All
y'all
right.
next
Good
week.
night. Yes, sir. Good night.